Bridge and make your voice heard at home and abroad.
Call 876-669-5000.
Download the Bridge 99 FM app now from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the Bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
They're off! The Bridge 99 FM is on track, bringing you horse racing from Caymanas Park this and every Saturday and Sunday.
It's a groundbreaking partnership with Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited
and the Big Bridge 99 FM for gripping Sport of Kings races to you everywhere.
Simulcasting on Jam Radio in New York.
Up to 20 races on Saturdays and Sundays from 11:30 a.m. through 6 p.m.
It's horsepower from your favorite thoroughbreds head-to-head for victory.
All this plus mad music mixes.
Sometimes some of them are rally back.
Only on the Bridge 99 FM to the world.
Bridging the Caribbean gaps across the globe on social media. We are Facebooking, IGing, TikToking, and Twittering at the Bridge 99 FM.
KFC. Sometimes it's stress, but me not bother worry. Cause me still I get my KFC today. The chicken box combo, value for me pay. It tastes so good and me I save all the way. So me feel happy, feel happy, feel happy.
Feel happy to save at KFC with a chicken box combo. A piece of delicious chicken, fries, biscuit and Pepsi for just $615. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Feel happy, feel happy, feel happy.
Beautiful game.
There's a chance for a woman. Oh, they've scored! I do not believe what I've just seen.
Football's finest.
He scored! Oh, Troy Deeney has scored!
Game time, powered by Anybet. Fridays, 12 noon to 1 p.m.
Alexis at the back post, but
discussions, analysis, predictions, and odds that make you the winner. Only on the Bridge 99 FM.
Whatever you need. Is the man to call.
Anybet, your best bet.
Bridge 99 FM. Live terrestrially in your territory. And also online at thebridge99fm.com.
Hello, why ya itch? For as low as $900, you can get ready to fly out with a Digicel Caribbean or international roaming plan. It no matter where you're there. Get a plan so you can link up your friends and family, stay connected to your business, and use your favorite apps while you're abroad. With up to 14 gigabytes of data, and now you get free roam like you never left yard. Dial *153 number sign or visit the My Digicel app today to activate a Digicel Roam Easy plan. Text 153 to 137 for more info. Digicel, made in Jamaica.
From Black Bridge to the George Washington Bridge, from the top of the Empire State Building to the Blue Mountain Peak, from the Grill Point to Morant Point to Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, New York City.
Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Let's Start Justice with Jamaicans for Justice. And this is a place that you can be aware of your rights as well as be informed on the legislative issues that the Parliament is considering. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ.
My name is Jade Williams, the Policy and Advocacy Specialist at JFJ.
Now, I just want to remind our listeners that as they watch the program, they can in fact make phone calls to us and share their views on different things. And just reminding you, even before we start, that the number to call is 676-4996, or you can WhatsApp your views at 239-7583. And of course, we are airing this episode live on our YouTube platform. Now, Jade, as usual, we're going to start out by doing a little recap of the human rights issues that we saw coming out this week, earlier, as well as last week. And I think it's important that we start first by acknowledging that we had two police officers who lost their lives while protecting Jamaican citizens, and we send our condolences to the families of Corporal Oliver Mullings and Constable Brian Martin. Constable Martin was only 22 years old, so I think his death in particular really saddens us as a human rights organization and as citizens. So again, condolences to the families and members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. We also saw other things coming out, and I just want to indicate to the general public that Minister Matthew Samuda, via his Twitter page, did make an update to say that the Rear Cobre situation, there will be an update on Friday, October 28th, so persons can listen out to what is happening there so we can be so informed. And two other items of importance we believe that the public should really keep up to date on. We saw reports emerging yesterday that a senior JDF officer has since been under investigation, where allegations emerged.
Some allegations have been made.
Yes, that 16 women came forward. I don't want to use the word sexual harassment only because based on some of the allegation, it seems as if it extended to sexual assault and rape in some of those instances. So I think we stand with those women and we applaud their bravery. And of course, we hope that justice will be swift and quick for them. The other thing of importance, Indicom has since released an update that in October alone we saw 19 people being killed in confrontation with law enforcement officers. And of course, JFJ, we recognize that each case has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and we make no assertion as to the circumstances, but the numbers are quite alarming. And based on the trend that we're seeing, 19 in 1 month. And by the way, this morning it seems that the number is now at 20, because this morning there was another killing. And we are not sure if the numbers so far will exceed 2021, and 2021 actually saw an increase when you compare the numbers in 2019, I believe. So a little bit cause for concern, and of course, while police officers ought to be careful and we applaud them for their efforts, we want to ensure that where possible, non-lethal weapons are being utilized through pepper spray, batons, and so on, appropriately so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so over to you, Jade.
Yes, I'm going to go straight into what is normally our right of the day, but this week it's our fact of the day. And this week we are pulling from our Access to Information Act, where it states that the fundamental principles that underlies Jamaica's system of constitutional democracy are accountability, transparency, and public participation. So accountability being you are able to have enough information about what should be done and enough information about what is done so that those persons responsible for doing are able to be held to account. Public participation allows you to make your opinion known, for you to be able to vote on issues that matter to you, and for you to be able to participate in public processes. Like, as we're going to talk about our topic today, participating in making submissions to Parliament on legislation that affects our country, and of course transparency, which is essentially getting the information that is relevant to you. I'd also go into our trivia right before we start our script. Our trivia is, which of the following is not a branch of the state? The executive, the monarch, the judiciary, the legislative. And as you know, you can win $1,000 credit from the network of your choice if you give the correct answer to our Instagram pages or send it to our WhatsApp at 239-7583.
And as you were talking about some of those key principles of democracy, transparency, and accountability, clearly the fact of the day is quite appropriate for the topic that we're about to discuss, which is the Integrity Commission and several elements around strengthening the anti-corruption framework in Jamaica. And just to start out, in 2020, the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, CPI, gave Jamaica a score of 44 out of 100, with 0 being very corrupt and 100 being little to no corruption. This scoring placed Jamaica at number 69 out of 180 countries in all, and 5th in the Caribbean for corruption. This data clearly indicate that Jamaican citizens do perceive their public officials as highly corrupt in carrying out their official duties.
The Integrity Commission, formed in 2017 by the Integrity Commission Act, operates under a $1 billion budget and is the merger of several previous separate anti-corruption agencies. And its purpose is to promote and strengthen the measures for prevention, detection, investigation, and the prosecution of acts of corruption. And over the past couple of weeks, a joint select committee has been taking recommendations on the act and its possible amendments.
Members of civil society have expressed concern because one of the Integrity Commission's mandate is to enhance public confidence that acts of corruption and impropriety committed by persons exercising public functions will be appropriately investigated and dealt with in a manner that achieves transparency, accountability, and fairness. The principal director of the National Integrity Action believes that the objective cannot be achieved with the proposed gag order that is currently in the Integrity Commission Act. I think we have a clip from Trevor Monroe.
What we have said so far justifies retaining that absolute prohibition, which would say to the Integrity Commission, if you are investigating a municipal corporation, you can't state that to the public. You ask a question, you can't say yes or no. You have to go to the Parliament, as Member Robinson suggests, on the grounds that it will be a matter of specific interest. I think that this is an excessive curb.
The concerns and recommendations raised by the NIA have similarly been expressed by the Integrity Commission, the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, and of course us at Jamaicans for Justice. Member of Parliament Julian Robinson has, however, challenged the calls for the removal of the gag clause.
What will give the public confidence is the completion, the prosecution, and the arrest of people who are involved in big criminality and corruption, not the small fryers, right? That's how people will know that the $1 billion that has been spent annually on the commission is value for money.
That was Member of Parliament Julian Robinson. The Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Fort, has also defended the seemingly held position of the Joint Select Committee for the Integrity Commission to report to Parliament prior to making a statement about the investigations to the public.
The argument that the notification to Parliament is going to act as, the word escapes me, but you know, it's
impediment,
signals.
Perhaps? Okay, I was suggesting impediment based on where you were going.
It's a tip-off.
Yes.
Tip-off is the word I'm looking for. But why you think the announcement and the press conference won't do the same thing?
NIA's director, however, challenged the view of the Joint Select Committee. So, Jamaicans for Justice made several other recommendations to the Joint Select Committee, including a call to strengthen the investigative powers of the Integrity Commission, greater protection for witnesses and whistleblowers, as well as a call for a comprehensive anti-corruption law that makes provision for offenses of bribery.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and then when we return, we're going to be joined by Daniel Archer, Attorney at Law and Director at NIA, as well as Jeanette Calder, the Executive Director of Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, JAMP.
KFC. Sometimes it's stress, but me not bother worry. Cause me still still I get my KFC today. The chicken box combo, value for me pay. It tastes so good and me I save all the way. So me feel happy, feel happy, feel happy.
Feel happy to save at KFC with a chicken box combo. A piece of delicious chicken, fries, biscuit, and Pepsi for just $615. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Feel happy, feel happy, feel happy.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
Bridging the Caribbean gaps across the globe on social media. We are Facebooking, IGing, TikToking, and Twittering at The Bridge 99 FM.
From Flat Bridge to the George Washington Bridge. From the top of the Empire State Building to the Blue Mountain Peak. From the Grill Point to Morant Point to Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, New York City.
Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion.
We are talking today about the Integrity Commission Act and in particular some of the concerning provisions that we would have identified, hoping for some legislative change. We have joining us is Daniel Archer, and while we are also awaiting Miss Jeanette Caldo to join us a bit later.
Welcome, Miss Archer, to JFJ's program. We're happy to have you.
Pleasure is mine. Daniel is just fine.
All right. Thanks for joining. Can you share NIA's position, firstly, on the gag order? What exactly is the issue that you're having with it?
The objective of NIA is to ensure that there is greater transparency, improved transparency, and in doing so, you will affect and improve public trust. And so our contention is that the clause as it is forbids, prevents, precludes them from speaking about or identifying that there is in fact an investigation. Now there is one school of thought that says they can table this information to Parliament and they can do so when it's a matter of special interest. There's another school of thought that says, well, you don't need to tell the public. You can just come to Parliament and tell Parliament what you're investigating. What the NIA is saying is we want the entity to speak, if they can, about what they're doing. And we've gone further and we say, we understand that you may have an issue with reputation, that you want to protect the reputation of individuals because in the past, announcing an investigation has damaged individuals and it has damaged companies when there is no evidence coming out, no charges, nothing to come to say that which you have said was true. And so we have put forward what we think is the best balance by putting forward a criteria that is used in New Zealand. So New Zealand has a similar legislation, and what they've done is they said, well, look, there's a criteria that can be used to determine whether or not the entity speaks about an investigation. And we're suggesting that that is something that is considered. It's okay for Parliament as it is to say, but the legislation as it stands allows them to speak when they come to Parliament. Then you can hear. What we're saying is encourage public trust, improve transparency, provide a guideline then that allows them to do much more than not say anything at all. Yes, there's an investigation, full stop. But you can protect the reputation and you can protect the information that is shared by adding a regulation or putting together a clause that gives a guideline that facilitates how this information is shared so that you can control it. That's what we're saying.
I see. You know, one of JFJ's points, we also happened to present on the same day as NIA to the committee. And one of our points related to the gag clause, because several ministers would have pointed out that, you know, once it is tabled in Parliament, the commission can make as many statements as they'd like.
Right.
But we were concerned about, for example, the expeditiousness of an investigation and the procurement of evidence. For example, we would have seen in other kinds of investigations by other agencies, like, for example, the JCF, in order to encourage information about a specific investigation to come into. I'm sorry, Ms. Archer, you're saying something?
I think we're having a breakup of Daniel. Do we now have Jeanette on the phone? Daniel, are you hearing us? I think we may have lost her.
Yes, we may have lost her. But the point I was making, though, Mikkel, is that what we would have highlighted, several investigations by the JCF would have allowed for an announcement of, for example, a person of interest, or that an investigation is taking place. And what we found that to do is encourage the public to come and volunteer information in what they feel is a safer space to do so, because they know that the police or whatever agency is already invested in an investigation based on this issue, right? So one of the points that we would have, and I think it was you that made this point, Mikkel, that there seems to be a disparity between whose reputations are important and whose are not.
Daniel?
Daniel, you're back.
Okay.
Well, I'm back at an excellent time, and that is something I wanted to highlight. I think it's unreasonable, unfair, in fact, that when the police puts out a person of interest, and they say, he's a person of interest, we just want some information from him. The stigma attached to that individual cannot then be dispelled by them changing their minds, you know.
You're absolutely correct.
So is it, and that is why I started from the premise that you wanted a player to have greater transparency. And in building public trust, you don't want it to be said that one set of people's reputation is more important than the other. And I think if the concern is that there's damage to reputation, perhaps we could also consider including in the legislation some form of compensatory mechanism coming from the commission. Should they do or say anything that affects the reputation of those persons who are named or the entity that's named, that there is a measure of compensation coming from them? Perhaps that could be a gatekeeper.
In listening to Minister Chuck Daniel, one of the things that he had in fact proposed, and this question was posed to JFJ during our own presentation to the Joint Select Committee, the matter of defamation, and quite frankly, we deferred the matter to the Joint Select Committee that it would be within their remit to indicate whether or not, if reputational damage does occur, that there should be some compensation. However, one of the concerns we have seen coming from the Joint Select Committee is that they are saying that they have heard the position of civil society around reputational damage and they have counted it, but they maintain that if the investigations were to be announced before anything solid is put forward, then public confidence would be reduced. And we have counted from JFJ to say that it's quite the opposite, that by remaining silent, you may find that public confidence will still be lowered. I'm not sure if NIA has a position on this. I listened to your principal director speaking, and he had made some reference to the situation to say that, not in NIA, my apologies, the Integrity Commission was not able to confirm or deny some recent things happening in the public space relating to the Prime Minister's certification of his statutory declaration. And that by not being able to confirm or deny, you may have confidence being lowered in the public office of the Prime Minister as well as the Integrity Commission itself. I'm not sure where your position on being able to speak generally may in fact increase public confidence.
I believe we stand with you that speaking, and I want to be very careful here.
Yes.
When we say to speak, remember we have advanced a criteria that they would use to judge whether or not they should indicate what is happening if there's an investigation. And that criteria simply said, We look at public interest. You look at the reputational damage or harm to the potential individual or the business under investigation. You look at the level of details required to ensure that there's a high level of accuracy in reporting. When we do something like that, you engender public confidence. And I dare say, with the greatest of respect, that as it stands, a majority of Jamaicans have no public trust. So the corollary would be that you would want to do something to elevate that trust, and that is speaking to the people. I think we need to make that distinction, and it is perhaps something that I've heard a parliamentarian say, that they don't get it. It's a thankless job, but it's also a job that requires you to be completely honest with the people. And we lack that kind of transparency and honesty. And I think allowing an entity to say, yes, there's an investigation, and perhaps utilizing the criteria indicate that they are ongoing investigations. You can look at the website, you can see what is happening. People then begin to believe that the system is working because these issues of corruption or these allegations of corruption are being dealt with. And so public confidence in the industry, in the institution, begins to develop a little bit more because we can see that it's happening. I think one of the things that we are not looking at is that the response of Parliament seems to be protecting Parliament or protecting parliamentarians. And that in and of itself does not lend confidence to the legislation or to the arguments put forward that says they can speak.
I think one of the ministers perhaps would challenge you on that, Daniel, wherein there kept being this reiteration throughout the sitting to say that parliamentarians are but mere a small subset of public officials. That
yes, but they are the ones we see, my friend, and they're the ones that we're asking to set the example, to come forward and say, we have nothing to hide. We are prepared. So this is the allegation and we're answering it. Yes, it's a thankless job, but it's a job that requires absolute scrutiny.
Yes.
And you have to remember, this is in a situation where they are also given an opportunity to have access to vast resources. And I'm not just talking about monetary resources. I'm talking about the length and impact of influence.
Yes.
And so if you want to engender public trust, it's one of the sacrifices I think the parliamentarians must make, which is to make themselves open to the public.
And we stand with you there. One of the wins, if I could call it, Jade, when we look at how the Office of the Contractor General used to operate with the posting of contracts and so on, we have not seen that necessarily coming from the Integrity Commission based on their reading of the Integrity Commission Act as it now stands. And I think the Joint Select Committee has signaled that they would support the posting of contracts. I'm not sure if NIA has a position on that particular matter, because I would want us to separate the types of information that we're talking about. Investigation, different from certain special reports, as they call it, different from contracts and so on. Does NIA have a position on the matter of contracts being posted on the Integrity Commission website as a win?
Specifically, I think where NIA stands is wherever it leads to transparency, yes. Wherever it encourages transparency, then we would always support that. I think you've made a point, though, which I want to touch on. The interpretation of the legislation. The Integrity Commission is of one view and Parliament is of another view, which to my mind suggests that the legislation can be much clearer.
Agreed. We had in fact posed that, Jade, during our presentation to Minister Malahoo Fort.
Yes, we did, because the minister is adamant that it is a misinterpretation why the commission believes that their powers are abrogated.
That they're constraining themselves.
Yes, and so and like you said, Daniel, we think that if it is so that so many persons can interpret the legislation in a way that was not intended, then it would be useful to revisit how the legislation is constructed so that it can be clearer for those who intend to interpret it on a daily basis. So we're going to break right here.
But please stay with us, Daniel,
yes.
because you're a lecturer in political science, so there's something I want us to touch on a little bit when we return. Please.
KFC.
Feel happy to save at KFC with a chicken box combo for just $615. KFC, it's finger licking good. The time by KFC is
1:30.
Bridge 99 FM, live terrestrially in your territory and also online at thebridge99fm.com.
Hello, why ya itch? For as low as $900, you can get ready to fly out with a Digicel Caribbean or international roaming plan. It no matter where you're there. Get a plan so you can link up your friends and family, stay connected to your business, and use your favorite apps while you're abroad. With up to 14 gigabytes of data, and now you get free roam like you never left yard. Dial star 153 number sign or visit the My Digicel app today to activate a Digicel Roam Easy plan. Text 153 to 137 for more info. Digicel, made in Jamaica.
The beautiful game.
There's a chance for a woman. Oh, they've scored! I do not believe what I've just seen.
Football's finest.
He scored! Oh, Troy Deeney has scored!
Game time, powered by Anybet. Fridays, 12 noon to 1 p.m.
Alexis at the back post, but
Discussions, analysis, predictions, and odds that make you the winner. Only on the Bridge 99 FM.
whatever you need, a fireman. Messi's the man to call.
Anybet, your best bet.
Feel happy, feel happy, feel happy.
Feel happy to save at KFC with a chicken box combo. A piece of delicious chicken, fries, biscuit, and Pepsi for just $615. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Don't wanna leave, don't wanna go. We stay tuned to Bridge 99 Jamaica. Don't wanna leave, we stay tuned. Bridge 99 Jamaica.
Our vision is love. Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. Today we are gagging corruption, as our producer has called the episode. We're talking about the Integrity Commission Act today. We are joined by Daniel Archer from the National Integrity Action. Michael, I believe you had something pressing to ask Daniel.
Well, I don't know about pressing, but
you're trying to draw me into.
No, but you know, one of the things I wanted us to discuss, Daniel, because I think people perhaps don't appreciate the difference in the structure between the Office of the Contractor General and that of the Integrity Commission. So I'm not sure if you're in a position to really indicate the difference between that one-man ombudsman approach that we had with the Contractor General to how the Integrity Commission is now structured that would perhaps allay some of the concerns that persons would have.
Perhaps the greatest difference would be and is the fact that what you just said, one man as opposed to a panel, a commission of three.
Yes.
And what that does, just like you sit in the Court of Appeal, so for those who follow what's happening in our court, you'll appreciate that one judge can make a decision, but when it comes to an appellate court, you have three judges who sit to listen. So what it gives is the security that is not just one person's view that carries. It is going to be all three who are equal on the panel, who are just as equipped, but who are in a position to make that determination as opposed to one individual. I also think if you want to look at the differences, you can look at the offices and how it is structured under the new legislation. And that in and of itself gives the kind of security that you have in terms of investigation. To be fair, under the Office of the Contractor General, there were many utterances which would have given rise to doubt and the damage to reputation of companies and individuals, which didn't carry much. And I think under the new dispensation, the fair is the very same thing would carry. And so the legislation is written in such a way that it seeks to remedy that mischief that occurred in the past, to protect people and entities from being broad-brushed, so to speak. The difference here, though, is that the level of investigation that is required and who is doing it and how it's done and the panel is very different from what's done in the past. And I would hasten to say that is currently being led by an esteemed member of the judiciary, a retired member of the judiciary. So he says that I've interpreted it to be so. Then it stands to reason that the legislation can be much clearer. The upside to this legislation, which everyone should appreciate, it was one of those legislations that many persons internationally recognize as being key to treating with corruption in Jamaica. When it came out, many of us applauded, and it is that instrumental. We need to break down the legislation. We need to let people understand that the commission has the authority to investigate, and let people feel trust in the investigation of the commission.
Yes, to investigate and to prosecute as well. And as a Commission of Parliament, it's one of the stronger, we see some strong elements of independence in it. JFJ, we do have some position on that, because when, in our estimation, given our historical ties to corruption, feather bedding in the public offices and so on, it is our belief that the Integrity Commission should be a constitutional body. Not everybody would buy into that argument, but, we think that is the best way to safeguard, because the Integrity Commission at some point may be holding the highest levels of offices to account. I know NIA in the past had made similar calls. I'm not sure if that position still remains for the organization, but it is something worth discussing, we believe.
I think, you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's where we are.
Okay.
I think what you want to do is, it would be a dream if you had a freestanding commission, a freestanding independent commission, absolutely independent. But as I say, it's a dream. Things in Jamaica take a long time to manifest, like a cold morning in Manila when you're pouring honey. But we will be grateful for small steps, and I think we need to just focus on this particular one, because here is what I'm throwing out to you. Where we are in our society, everybody talks about corruption. The politicians may be a small set, and as the politician said, it's a thankless job. People will say nobody told you to go for it, so the fact that you go for it means you're serving us. But the reality is, a majority of politicians are broad-brushed as being corrupt. Likewise, government bodies and entities. What you want is the best opportunity to build confidence so that people can see that the very steps are being taken, and it's being done in a clear and simple manner that the regular man can understand that there is a check and balance on how resources are used by those in the public system.
Yes. Last question from me. I'm not sure Jade has any more, but there was a critique from member Julian Robinson, and we played that in the clip. And JFJ, we also have our own criticism of the Integrity Commission, because we believe that I won't go down the road about the operational cost. I won't do that. But we believe the $1 billion that is being quoted every day. But we believe that given the powers that the Integrity Commission has, we question the pace of investigation, the fact that we have not seen any major cases being prosecuted. And then when we see cases of corruption in the media, we don't get a sense that it is the Integrity Commission that is pursuing those cases. So Member Robinson had made a statement to say that what would in fact build public trust is Integrity Commission pursuing those cases and prosecuting them. Is there a position from the NIA around the effectiveness of the Integrity Commission to date?
I have no authority to address that, as in it's not something that I was given a brief on. What I can say, though, is our position in respect of transparency. And so you would have heard the member say that you must go after the big criminals.
Yes.
I think where we need to address our mind to is we want more from the commission. We want to hear more of the investigation. Do you hear what I said? We want to hear. We want more.
Because it may very well be happening, but we don't know.
Correct. And because of that, there's a clause in the legislation that says of special interest. It may very well be that they may be of the view that those matters aren't of special interest to Parliament. And so we are not hearing from them. And so it takes us right back to where we started. Perhaps if they were able to say an investigation is being conducted and the state of the investigation, then we would know more about how it is they're going about achieving their purpose and objective, as the minister was reminding us in Parliament of the purpose and objectives, and I would mean Minister Malahoo Forth. He kept reminding us of the extent of the powers that the Commission has. Whether they're using it effectively is another test, and you are perfectly right to ask them, how is this going on? But they perhaps will tell you. We can't tell you.
Yes. But you know, Danielle, I did say I had a last point, but I want to chip in as you talk about the oversight of the Integrity Commission. For the public to be aware that the Integrity Commission is a commission of Parliament, and therefore there is an oversight committee that exists to also ensure that the Integrity Commission is acting within its mandate. And perhaps this is not a question for you, but I'm not sure if NIA has any thought on it. When we read the Integrity Commission's last report, annual report, it suggests that the Oversight Committee had in fact met only twice during 2021. And I would suggest to Parliament that as it improves and increases its own oversight of the Integrity Commission, that frequency of meetings need some improvement.
Well, we did indicate as part of our submission that we were actually happy with the first review, which was conducted within 5 years.
Yes.
Now, the efficacy of the frequency of the meetings and the management, those are things that we would have to certainly look at to see that the entity is doing what it is supposed to do. But I happen to say that even in the face of that, where you may be of the view that they're not having as frequent meetings, does ask the question, then if you're not having frequent meetings and Parliament and the Commission is to issue a report on these matters, it may help for us to have that kind of transparency and completeness, that the Commission is allowed to indicate what it's doing and what it's not doing.
Yes.
And so that clause would need to be tightened or loosened or rephrased. To my mind, I have a huge problem with us just amending a clause. I think we need to just look at it and decide if it's working or not working and make it simpler and put it in as clear as you can so that there is very limited view for misinterpretation. And that, I do believe, would help with the reviewing and the expectations of management and the expectations of them communicating with us as to what is happening.
Thank you so much, Danielle Archer. We appreciate you joining our Let's Start Justice program, and we hope to have you again in another capacity, because I enjoy talking the public policy elements with you as well. So thanks on behalf of JFJ.
Pleasure, certainly mine. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Jade?
Yes, I think that I want to go straight into a comment from our public view, because I think that Daniel has highlighted some of our concerns, but not just our concerns. For example, our public view question this week was, should the so-called gag clause, we said so-called because we like to keep ourselves on the right side of the law, prevent the Integrity Commission from disclosing investigations? Should it be removed? And the comment says, and I'm going to do my best Patwa impression, Mikkel, don't laugh at me.
I'll try not to. I'll restrain myself.
The way how corruption high in Jamaica, why would I want to shut up the company we deal with corruption? Something to write this up. But it goes back to Daniel's point and our point and Jam's point and many others who would have made presentation to the committee, that the perception is that the Integrity Commission is not working. And I think that has a lot to do with the Commission's ability to give the public information. And even if that is a perceived ability, what can we do what can they do as legislators to dissuade them from that perception?
And if I may add, because for JFJ, we're not taking any sides, and I think that is something we want to be very clear on. We're on the side of accountability and transparency, yes? And if we have this particular body in place, the resources have been secured from our tax dollars. We are concerned about the levels of corruption in the country. The only way that we can retain our trust in the Integrity Commission is if they're able to speak. I listened to the Joint Select Committee saying that the Integrity Commission reports to Parliament, but I hasten to add that reporting to Parliament is a mere structure, a process. They report to the Jamaican people. And when I hear the utterances about media and press releases, somebody put it nicely on social media, that the media is a means to an end because the Integrity Commission would be reporting to the Jamaican people. And one cannot assume that if something is tabled in Parliament, it is going to be getting that type of traction automatically for everybody tuning in, rather than you have every single media house that you can give me, the taxpayer, that sort of information to let me know, one, that Integrity Commission is worth the investment of our tax dollars, and two, that our public funds are being utilized as it ought to. So I think we have to be looking at things from different perspectives as we amend the legislation that is before the Joint Select Committee.
Okay, so I'm good. Thank you very much, Mikhail. That was quite impassioned from you.
Oh, Lordy.
We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be back with some more public comments.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
This is Rock Ashanti inviting you to listen to my show, Rock Ashanti Live, right here upon the Big Bot, Bridge 99 FM, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, right here, sir. Bridge 99 FM, Rock Ashanti Live.
Download the Bridge 99 FM app now from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store.
Hey! Hapampute! Representing for Bridge 99 FM. Keep it locked.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are talking Integrity Commission Act and strengthening the anti-corruption legislative framework in Jamaica. Now, we have discussed at length the gag order, and clearly we support the removal of it, but with contingencies in place through some discretion being allowed to the Integrity Commission. And we spoke at length, we believe, about the New Zealand model. Yes. That is something that NIA had called for, and we echo it, because in our submission initially we had looked at the UK model,
which I've realized is quite similar to the New Zealand model as well. So it seems as though we were on the same train of thought, just two different jurisdictions. But I would say though, Mikhail, we're not the only ones who think the clause should be removed. We ran a little poll today, not scientific, but our viewers on YouTube would have given their input, and right now we're at a 83% of persons saying the clause should be removed.
Yes, and Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal ran something that was a little bit more scientific than ours. They utilized trend media, and interestingly enough, some 60-something% believe that the clause should actually be removed. But I want to shift from the gag clause a little bit, because JFJ had made some other calls in our submission that we believe is of importance.
Absolutely.
And I want to start out with broadening the scope for the anti-corruption legislative framework to be strengthened. Now, year after year, we have seen acts of corruption in this country where there are clear breaches of conflict of interest, where there's nepotism. We hear about people encouraging family members and friends and so on to be appointed to board. We hear about preferential treatment. Now, when we look at the Corruption Prevention Act, I think there is a limited scope of acts of corruption that doesn't deal with our realities of the types of corruption that has bled public funds in this country. And that is why sometimes we're upset as citizens and we say there's a slap of the wrist when these things happen. So JFJ has called for a review of the Corruption Prevention Act, but we have taken it a step further. We have added our voice to that of the Integrity Commission, Jade, where 5 successive years since their inception, they have said to Parliament in their annual report, let us look at the UK Bribery Act as something to replicate in Jamaica that will see private sector playing a role, a positive role in reducing corruption by putting in measures to say if there is a failure to report, this will happen. So I think that bribery component is important for Parliament to look at. So, we are making that call yet again for the legislative framework to be strengthened.
And Michaela, as you say, a call that the Integrity Commission themselves would have made in prior annual reports. One of the things that we also looked at in our submission is how witnesses and potential witnesses / whistleblowers are treated under the varying acts. So we looked at Integrity Commission Act, we looked at the Protected Disclosure Act, we looked at the Justice Protection Act. So we went all over in terms of our legislative framework. And
many sleepless nights, you're telling me?
Yes, quite so. Just to determine, for example, how you would be treated as a witness coming to give the Integrity Commission information. And one of the things Minister Chuck would have highlighted in Parliament in several sittings, I believe, of this committee is the increase in public participation. But I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is to encourage public participation, there has to be a certain level of confidence, as we would have always said.
Yes.
And
you want to come forward, but what does it mean for me?
What are the hindrances? And I think one of the things we have identified colloquially and with data is our witnesses don't feel safe. Persons who witness crimes, acts of corruption, violence, they don't feel safe in bringing that to authorities, and how we can increase that safety. So what we realized is that there is an alarming gap, because where you are a whistleblower and your evidence or your information, you don't get called as a witness in court, or you're not likely to be called as a witness in court, there's very limited protection for you.
Yes.
And that protection is very much based in economic and professional mitigations.
Yes.
And nothing to do with your actual personal safety or the personal safety of your family. And I don't know, I think it's something that we should be looking more closely at, especially in the kind of criminal landscape that we're in now.
Operate in.
Yeah.
I'm happy you said it, because when we talk about blowing the whistle, so to speak, letting the public, for example, we look at the allegations that have reached the JPS that, there's a data breach, and that data breach was made public because there was a whistleblower. Now, when you look at
so you cannot say allegations. It happened. It happened.
I like to err on the side of caution. But when we look at these things, and as you said, in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, our historical ties to gangs, awarding of contracts to some of those elements and so on. If I am to blow the whistle, what are the protective measures in place for me? When we looked at the Integrity Commission's annual report, we saw them making reference to the Witness Expense Act to indicate that you need more funds to
support witnesses being able to come and give evidence in court, their travel expenses,
and so on.
And yes,
but you highlighted, Jade, that there may be actual harm to me.
Absolutely, you might not be able to take up the expenses because you are no longer here.
And it's beyond the expense, because if there's harm to me and my family, how can you support me for me to want to blow the whistle, to give that sort of evidence for you to break that cycle of corruption? And we're happy to report that in the Joint Select Committee reviewing the Integrity Commission Act, we were advised that the Joint Select Committee reviewing the Protected Disclosure Act, which is the Whistleblower Act, will convene November 20 or
22nd.
22nd.
Yes.
And JFJ, we had made a submission, and there are several elements around that. We won't go into it today, but our submission is there for Parliament to look at. And when the time comes and we receive our invitation, then we will speak more. There is one last thing I want to speak of in terms of our submission that we had made to Parliament, and that is strengthening the investigative powers of the Integrity Commission as is. we did note that the Integrity Commission, and I have to say kudos to Parliament, because when we reviewed the types of commission that exist, we see where you may have a commission in and of itself, but they have to work with law enforcement
in order to
investigate.
do the investigation.
Or you may have to work with your public prosecution to prosecute. In Jamaica, we have an Integrity Commission that is so strong that it has both an investigative arm as well as a prosecutorial arm. But we're seeing that you may have circumstances that requires the powers of arrest, the powers to seize and search. That is the language. You're the attorney. I don't want to be using legal terminology.
Yes, you can use that.
So the powers of a justice of the peace, we believe, should be given to the Integrity Commission, so that for situations that require emergency action, if you will, you don't have to rely on the partner agencies to be able to act. And that is something that happens right now in the Turks and Caicos that we are calling for Parliament to insert in our own act here.
Well, I'm hoping to see what the report coming out of the Joint Select Committee will look like and what recommendations are taken. But I sincerely hope that one of the considerations made by the committee is about how we can better support those individuals who are victims of acts of corruption, because that would require maybe some civil action. And as you know, civil action is not free and it's not cheap.
And in the very New Zealand and Australia, there is something called a Victim Support Act. So when people say, what about the victim? We would want to broaden the scope of the Victim Service Commission division under the Ministry of Justice to perhaps a legislation that really spells out how to deal with the victims of crime in the country, including remedies.
I agree. Well, I'm going to bring it back to a lighter note because we are coming to the end of our show today. But we do have a winner for our trivia this week, and this person will be receiving their $1,000 credit. Our trivia question was, which of the following was not a branch of government? And the answer was the monarch. And the person who won is Kamala B. She participated on our Instagram page. So if you'd like to be one of the persons that wins $1,000 credit or other prizes, depending on the trivia, you can participate on our Instagram page, make comments, or you can always WhatsApp us at 2397583. And that number, it works all the time, Monday to Friday, not just on Tuesday. So feel free, if you need to get in touch with JFJ, to WhatsApp that number, and we'll see how best we can assist.
In the last minute, Jade, of the program, before we close out, just a little bit of civil knowledge for the public, and it was on the slide there. We had a little spelling error for interprets. It should be the E. I had to point it out. I want people to know that we can all spell at JFJ, right? But the monarch right now is no longer the Queen, because we know that the Queen passed. It's now King Charles III, and it's our head of state. And we do look forward to the day that we no longer make reference to the monarchy at all.
Indeed.
As we become a republic. So we stand with the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs that when the time comes, JFJ will be providing some public education, because our laws need to stop pledging allegiance to a foreign country. It offends me greatly as a student of public policy. God bless the king. Come on. And King's Council and this kind of nonsense. So we need to move away from the monarchy and so on, and just start pledging our allegiance to Jamaica.
To our
the
Jamaicans.
land we love, a great nation that we live in.
I agree.
And that's where JFJ stands on that particular
Absolutely.
issue.
Well, thank you, Mikkel, for that impassioned plea at the end there. And I want to thank our listeners for joining us this week. We are at the end of our time. But we will see you, of course, again next week at the same time, 1 p.m. And this was Let's Start Justice with Jamaicans for Justice. I'm Jade Williams.
I'm Mikkel Jackson. Have a good Tuesday.
No to unlawful detention and police brutalization, class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or Jamaicans4Justice.org.
The people's champion.
Wow, wow! Yo, this is Baby Shama locked in on the bridge. Can you hear me? This is my story. This are the bridge story. Hey, wow, wow!
Yo, dancehall can't start when the money must shut the content.
Right. Introducing the Bridge 99 FM Dance Hall Chart Show.
I are the one, and they are what?
All about our weekly top 10 music countdown, our Bridge Spotlight featuring artists and music producers, and our chat with the Bridge Jocks and music director.
We bring you in on the action.